Wonderful. Thank you for joining us, everyone, this evening. I'm Tiana Ghazi. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the events coordinator for Natural Lands. Many of you may have met me out on the preserves or seen me on these webinars before, or if not, I hope to meet you in the new year. I'd like to welcome you tonight to our Outdoors Online Science of Spiders with Julie Travaglini of Allegheny Land Trust. I'm very excited to have Julie with us again to learn more about our lovely wildlife. So we've learned so much about like bats, coyotes, you name it so far, and we have very much more planned. So please check out our website for any others coming up. I'll also share those links. Before we get started, just a few things. This event will be recorded. If you leave the meeting, no worries. You'll be able to get back in through the link. Due to the webinar style, you will be muted throughout the event. Please type any comments or questions in the chat, and we will answer them at the end if we don't get to them live. So I would like to quickly introduce Natural Lands before we begin. Many of you are likely familiar with us, but we probably have a few new members joining us this evening. Thank you for your support. We are a nonprofit organization serving Eastern Pennsylvania and Southern New Jersey to preserve and nurture nature's wonders and create opportunities for joy and discovery in the outdoors for everyone. So we've been at it since the early 1950s, and today nearly 5 million people live within 5 miles of land under our permanent protection, which is wonderful. So how do we do it? We save open space by permanently protecting natural areas through acquisition and voluntary land protection agreements, and by helping communities preserve more of their land. So far, we have saved over 125,000 acres. We also care for nature. Our network of 40 plus nature preserves and one public garden located in 2 states and 13 counties, all of which are over 23,000 acres. And of course, connect people with the outdoors and each other like we're doing tonight, creating opportunities for people to connect with and learn from nature. So we had 100 people sign up tonight, so they are all learning about spiders, even if they don't join us live. A brief moment just to thank each and every one of the members. As I mentioned today, we are member supported. Your support makes all the stewardship work you see and all of these events possible. If you are interested in joining today and you're not a member, please feel free to go to the link natlands.org/membership. And finally, just a thank you. I'm very excited to introduce our presenter, Julie Travaglini. As I mentioned before, Julie is with Allegheny Land Trust as their Senior Director of Education and Curriculum. Julie regularly travels the country speaking at conferences on the importance of innovative environmental education for all. She has won multiple awards for her work, including Outstanding Environmental Educator of the Year. In 2023, she self-published a children's book called Super Skills of Backyard Bugs. In her spare time, she can be found looking for mushrooms, enjoying national parks, or crocheting mythical creatures. Julie, take it away. I'm so excited to learn about arachnids. Well, one type of arachnids from you.
Yes, one of the many arachnids.
One of many.
One of many, 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 many. All right, let me pull up my screen here.
Oh,
Show
yes, and thank you.
comes.
We have some people sharing in the chat from where they are local too, so thank you.
Your preserves have really fun names. I feel like our names are not nearly as fun as some
They
of the
really
ones
do.
yours have. Yeah.
Gwynedd is like Welsh for rolling hills or something.
Oh. I guess we do have a couple fun ones like Dead Man's Hollow and Devil's Hollow and Barking Slopes and kind of weird ones, but
Those are pretty cool.
otherwise not as fun. All right. Well, yes. Thank you for having me. Welcome. I was telling Tiana earlier that I'm really excited that 100 people signed up because sometimes when I do these webinars on like the not so cute and furry animals, they don't get as much attendance because people are like, ew, spiders, or they're fearful of spiders, and sometimes you just don't get as many people. So it's exciting to hear that 100 people signed up. That's amazing. And thank you all for joining. I know this time of year is like just full of chaos and busyness and always more to do. So I'm thankful that you want to learn about spiders today. Again, my name is Julie Travaglini, and I'm the Senior Director of Education and Curriculum at Allegheny Land Trust. And if you don't know who ALT is, that's okay. I don't expect you to, because we're like 6 hours from where you are, completely on the other side of the state. We're located just outside of Pittsburgh, and we're not quite as big as Natural Lands. We protect about 4,000 acres. We just crossed that 4,000th acre back in March, so that was exciting. And I keep saying like just in March, but like March is like rolling around again very soon and is now like on the opposite end of the year. But yes, this past March, we hit 4,000 acres, so really exciting stuff. I get the best job, what I think is the best job at ALT is in after a piece of property has been acquired and stewarded and we've put in trails and managed for invasives and like all of that stuff. I get to go in and teach people why nature is so cool and why we preserved that piece of green space and some of the incredible resources and creatures that may be on that property. So at ALT, our education department is a team of two, me and my coworker Sarah. And between us, we see between 7 and 10,000 people a year at a little over 200 events. So everything from things like this to monthly mushroom walks and visits to schools and libraries and senior centers and just tons and tons of different stuff. So again, thank you. You're part of the reason why we get to keep doing this. So, we are a busy education department, and this is actually our last event for 2025, which seems crazy, but also exciting. It's been a busy year. We saw just over 9,000 people. So, right in that kind of frame that I gave you of how many people we see. So, pretty exciting stuff. But don't worry, we already have January through March up for registration on our webpage, at least January and February. I don't think I've been ambitious enough to do March yet, but by next week I will. It'll be there. But today is all about spiders, and I just adore spiders. I've always enjoyed them. I tell the story when I was a little kid, I was absolutely terrified of bees, which is funny because bees are also one of my favorite creatures, but I was never the kid terrified of spiders. Like, of all the things, it was not spiders, it was bees. For me, but I've always found them interesting, and the more you get to know spiders, the more there is to love about spiders, and the more there is that makes them unique, the more you know. So, Spider 101 here, kind of the biology of spiders. I think most of us know that spiders have 8 legs. Arachnids, in general, have 8 legs. But there's some differences here in spiders that make them really unique. So, when we think of an insect, like a bee, for instance, we sing this, well, at least I sing the song, head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen, because we're taught that insects have 3 body parts. Now, that's not true for a spider. In a spider, there are 2 body parts, and that's because the head and the thorax is combined into what we call a cephalothorax. So it's a head and a thorax combined and an abdomen. And we like to say that to be a true spider, you have to have a waist. And I'll show you on a diagram here in a bit where you can see the little tiny waist of a spider that is connecting its cephalothorax and its abdomen. Sorry if you heard that. There was dog chaos behind me. It kind of scared me. Dogs. But they've got 2 body parts instead of 3. So automatically, they are down a body part. They've got 2 extra legs, but 1 less body part because that head and that thorax is combined into 1. They also have 8 eyes, and you might be thinking, where? Because that spider on the top there certainly looks like he has 4. And that's because some spiders have a clear visual of 8 eyes, and others have eyes that are compound or combined into 1 larger eye. So it looks like 1, but it's actually 2 smaller eyes, just really, really tightly together. So, like that spider on the top is a jumping spider. He still has 8 eyes, but some of his eyes are combined into those large front eyes. And we'll look, and some of our main families of spiders here in PA can be distinguished solely on how their eyeballs are placed on their head. So every family's eyeballs are slightly different, and just by looking close enough at a spider to see its eyeballs, which are not as hard to find as you would think. You might be thinking, like, a spider is tiny. How am I supposed to see 8 little eyeballs on it? But you'd be surprised once you get close enough, and 9 out of 10 spiders are not jumpers, and they're not going to jump at your face if you get close and look at them. You can see those eyes better than you might think. Now, spiders all have fangs. And if you have fangs, you have venom. They go hand in hand. You don't get fangs without venom. Fangs are solely a venom delivery device. They have no other purpose but to deliver venom. So automatically, if a creature is fanged, think of like a venomous snake, like a rattlesnake, or some of these spiders. Fangs are simply to inject venom. Venom is actively injected through fangs. They also all have spinnerets that produce silk. So all spiders have silk producing organs, and we'll talk specifically about that here in a little bit. But they all have silk producing spinnerets. All spiders produce silk. They don't all use it the same way, but they all make silk. Now, you might be thinking, like, wait a second, you said all spiders have fangs. So, does that mean all spiders are venomous? Because remember, fangs and venom go together. You don't have one without the other. The answer is yes. There's only 3 species of spider, and 2 of those 3 are debatable, that do not possess venom anymore in their body. So, every species of spider, minus ones that are in 3 very specific families, are venomous. And you might be thinking that's a scary thing to hear and that's a scary fact, but in actuality, scientifically classifying something as venomous and what we consider venomous are 2 different nomenclatures. So in science, anything that possesses venom is venomous. To us, we call something venomous if it is harmful to us. So venom is incredibly species specific, and it's incredibly differentiated between creatures depending on what they eat. So if you're not eating a mammal, if you're a creature like a spider who's out there eating insects, their venom is specific to insect bodies. Our bodies, nothing like an insect, so their venom doesn't have the same effect on us. So there are tons and tons and tons of creatures out there that are scientifically venomous, but to us pose 0 threat because their venom has no ability to cause us any harm or make us ill, any of that stuff, because it's not meant for our mammalian bodies. We will talk about the 2 species of spider that we call venomous, so that do have a little bit of effect on people here, kind of towards the like 2/3 of the way through. We'll kind of talk about them. So all spiders, minus very specific families, possess venom and are venomous, and they all produce silk from their spinnerets. Spider legs are also incredibly unique. You might think they might be a little fancier because there's 8 of them, there's extra legs in there, but they're incredibly not. like a spider's central nervous system is one of the most specialized of all the arthropods across the system, but their legs are very simple, and their legs are actually more like pistons, and they're controlled through hydraulics. So there's no musculature in those legs. Those legs move solely by water, and well, it's not water, but solely by fluid moving through the spider's legs, like a piston in an engine. And that's why a lot of times, well, almost every time, when you see a spider that has died, like curled up on a windowsill, when you see like a dead spider in your basement, on your windowsill, whatever it may be, the legs are always curled in. And that's because when they die, that liquid dries up. And when the liquid dries up, the legs curl. So that's why you're seeing when you see a spider who is no longer living, all those legs are always curled inwards towards it because that liquid has dried up. So really interesting stuff about how they move those 8 legs. If we look across the whole wide world, spiders are incredibly diverse creatures. They are the seventh largest order in all of the world. So there's a huge amount of spiders, 50,000 to be exact, across the country, and about 3,000 here in the US. They've been around quite a long time, and we'll see how they've kind of changed over time as well too, and how some of those earlier spiders maybe eat different things than some of the later spiders. But overall, there's an incredible biodiversity of spiders. They all share some similarities. Remember the cephalothorax and the abdomen, the 2 body parts, 8 legs, 8 eyes, fangs, venom, spinnerets, hydraulic legs. But there's 50,000 different types across the world, which I think is just mind blowing. There's 50,000 spiders that we know of. And always keep that in mind too, is that we are perpetually finding new of just about everything. So I think it was a couple years ago now, maybe. Time is irrelevant, but it wasn't all that long ago that we recently discovered a spider that made a 30-foot web. If we missed something that made a 30-foot web, imagine all of the teeny tiny little organisms and creatures around the world that we have never seen, that we just don't know exists. So that number is probably a whole lot higher of spiders that we have never encountered. And here's our parts of the spiders to show you again how a spider is laid out. And there in the middle of the spider's waist, you can see he's got the cephalothorax up at the top, his head and thorax combined, what's called a pedicel, which is that tiny little bit in the middle, his waist, that connects his cephalothorax and his abdomen on the base. And then the spinnerets are located on the abdomen, and on the other end, on the cephalothorax, you've got the pedipalp and the fangs that are used to hold down prey and inject. They bite with the fangs and inject the venom to be able to eat their prey. And another thing I want you to notice is just about everything of a real importance is in the cephalothorax. The spider's abdomen does not contain the legs, eyes, venom, none of that stuff. So minus making the silk for the spider, the abdomen is not of huge importance. So, this is another thing. A lot of things drive me crazy about like Halloween decorations in general, but it always makes me laugh when I see Halloween decorations. One that is a skeleton of a spider because spiders are invertebrates and have no bones. So the fact that they are selling skeleton spiders is one, ridiculous and hilarious, and two, they often will like split the legs and put 2 on the cephalothorax and 2 coming off the abdomen. They all come off the cephalothorax and all the spiders. So don't let Michaels and Hobby Lobby, and I almost said Joann Fabrics, but they're gone. Don't let those decor fool you. You now know your parts of a spider and can point out all the inaccuracies of your favorite Target Halloween decorations. I know I'm particularly obnoxious that time of year going to the store and being like, that's not a correct spider representation. So hopefully you now can annoy your friends and family with some spider knowledge when you go to Target or Hobby Lobby or wherever you may go to get your spider decor next fall. Now, I would be remiss not to talk about this guy. Who here knows what this is, first of all? What is this guy? Put it in the chat. Who is this? Tiana said a daddy long leg. Daddy long legs. You are correct. There comes some folks with the real name. Daddy Longlegs, Granddaddy Longlegs. Oh, that's a new one. But yes, this little creature here is lovingly, sometimes not so lovingly, referred to as a daddy longlegs. Now, there is a myth, wives' tale, thing going around. It's been going around for as long as you can remember. Who here has heard that this spider is the most venomous spider on the planet, but its fangs can't. There, Ginny said it before I even got it out of my mouth. Their fangs cannot penetrate human skin. Who has heard that or some variation of that? That they are incredibly venomous, but they just cannot, their fangs cannot bite through our skin. You've heard that. Tiana's heard that. Ryan's heard that. Janie's heard that. So at least 3 of you on this call, or 4 of you on this call, have heard that. And I'm here to completely debunk everything you know about this creature. So, for one, the very first thing, while yes, it is called a daddy longlegs, that is its nickname, this little creature is not a spider at all. In fact, he is most closely related to a mite. And his technical name, he's in the family Opiliones, and his technical scientific name is a harvest man. And there are lots and lots of species of harvest man around in Pennsylvania. 30 plus, I want to say. There's lots of species of this guy. So they're not all the same. Take a look next time you see some of them. You'll notice they're different colors and their bodies are slightly different shaped and they have different patterns on them. But if you look closely, they only have one body part. And remember, we just said to be a spider, you have 2. A spider has the cephalothorax and the abdomen, 2 body parts connected by that pedicel in the middle. The harvest man, the daddy longlegs as we call it, only has 1. So immediately you know it is no spider. Again, in fact, more closely related to a mite. He has 2 eyes, not 8. So spiders all have 8 eyes arranged in different patterns, where our harvest men, 2 eyeballs, same number of eyes as us. He does have the right amount of legs. I'll give him that. He is an arachnid. That's all he's got going for him spider-wise. Literally everything else is different. He does not possess fangs, and he does not possess spinnerets, so he cannot produce venom. There are no venom sacs here. There are no fangs to inject venom, and there's also no silk-making apparatus in the harvest man's body. So they do not make webs and they possess 0 venom. Not a single species of harvest man across the world possesses venom. They eat solid food, and this is something we'll discuss as we talk a little bit more about spiders here. But a true spider cannot eat solid foods. They liquefy everything they eat first. A harvest man can eat solid foods. And in fact, harvest men will eat just about anything they come across the forest floor. They're not picky at all. They're detritivores too, so they're often eating dead, decaying matter off the forest floor, and they're really important nutrient cyclers in that way. So we often see them 99% of the time when you see a harvest man, it's all around the forest floor. They're up and down vegetation, they're crawling across logs. They're just roaming around looking for something to eat because they just roam the forest floor up and down, eating just about anything they come across that they can fit into their mouth. So they're really important in that way. They're kind of like the scavengers of the arachnid world. They're really out there just cleaning up the forest floor. And here more information. I got ahead of myself and gave you all that information first. So yeah, all of those facts, most of those facts that you have been told about them are probably wrong. You're wrong. No, I'm kidding. But they are not venomous. They're safe to hold and pick up, and they will not harm you. They won't bite, they don't sting, they don't spray, they don't smell, none of that stuff. They have literally no obnoxious qualities about them. So next time you see them and someone says, "Oh, that's a huge spider," you can one, tell them it's not a spider, and maybe share some factoids of information here and help them understand the importance of our friends, the harvest men. So I always like to include that in here, that they are not spiders, they are completely harmless to human beings, and they're really just really cool creatures. Take a look at them too. Next time you see some out and about, see how many like different kinds you notice, because there's over 200 in the world. We've got quite a few here in Pennsylvania. So check it out. You'll notice they don't all. This is the Eastern Harvest Man, by far one of our more common ones, but you'll see lots of different ones out there. If you really look closely, you'll notice they're all a little different. Okay, so we said that the harvest man, the not a spider, can eat solid food, and I kind of alluded that true spiders cannot eat solid food, and spiders are predators. All species, minus one, there's literally only one spider in the whole wide world, and it's not a very common spider at all, eat other creatures. So they're out there hunting things to eat. The one spider, it's a type of jumping spider found in Central and South America, the Bagheera kiplingi, which, yes, indeed, is named after the gentleman who wrote the Jungle Book, and after Bagheera the leopard in Jungle Book. It is a jumping spider, and he eats the buds of acacia trees and also the nectar from those trees. Now, he will eat the occasional insect if one gets in the bud or is in the flower when it's ingesting the nectar in the bud of those trees. So, not exclusively herbivorous, but 90 to 95% of its diet is going to be the buds and the nectar from those acacia trees. So, every other, 49,999 spiders are predators, and our one little Bagheera jumping spider is an herbivore. And in all of the world on iNaturalist, which if you don't use iNaturalist, highly recommend. It tracks biodiversity of the things you see all around you in nature. On iNaturalist, there's only about 45 observations of the Bagheera kiplingi jumping spider in the whole world. So it is not super common. So you going to Central or South America and running into these acacia bud eating jumping spiders is fairly low. So they're all predators, all out there hunting something to eat in different ways. Only 3 families are not venomous, and only that very first one, Uloboridae, the cribbolate orb weaver, only those are truly non-venomous. The other 2 species still have like vestigial venom and vestigial fangs left in their body. So they still possess it. They don't utilize it anymore, but it's still in the body. So only one, the Uloboridae, is truly, truly non-venomous and no longer possesses venom sacs within the body. Those Uloboridaes, if you look down, you kind of see what's going on, that messy web on that second photo. That's kind of what they do. They catch something and make a giant mess out of it, and they kind of suffocate it with their webbing, is how they manage to take down their prey, is through suffocation rather than venom and putting kind of injecting the venom, and we'll talk about what happens there when a spider injects venom here. But spiders, by sheer fact that they are almost exclusively predators of insects, they are some of the most important insect and pest control on the planet. Spiders take out more insects than birds and bats combined. More mosquitoes than birds and bats combined. And I bring that up because bats often get, talked about as this hugely important pest control of mosquitoes. And don't get me wrong, they're vital parts of the ecosystem for lots and lots of different reasons, but mosquitoes are not great food for a bat. They're very leggy, there's not a lot of meat on them, so they're not the first choice of foods. And we'll talk about that at our bat webinar next year. So most likely bats are eating larger things, and the spiders are the ones really doing the lion's share of the work when it comes to taking out mosquitoes. And in fact, because a lot of spiders are out there catching their food via webs, so they're making these big webs, they're catching generally way more food than what they can eat. A lot of the food that gets caught and killed in their web is generally just left to decompose on the forest floor. So again, nutrient cycling, and helping with that insect and pest control, and only eating a really small amount. They are not the most efficient hunters, we'll say, by any stretch of the imagination. They are not a one for one, so not everything that ends up in their web gets eaten, that's for sure. Now, hopefully, I wanted to give you all a fair warning. Hopefully, no one's eating dinner right at this very moment because I'm going to tell you how spiders eat their food. Because remember, they cannot eat solid foods, so they inject their venom into their prey via their fangs, and they release an enzyme in their venom that essentially digests their food from the inside out. It liquefies the insides of those insects, and then the spider takes a drink of it, sucks up some of the innards of the insect, and then it releases all of that, including the enzyme that breaks stuff down, back into the insect. It mixes around in there. It liquefies a little more, and the spider takes more of it up. And then it does the same thing over and over and over again. So essentially, a spider eats, vomits, and re ingests its food many, many times as it eats it. So it eats the same meal and the same insect over and over and over again, many times, until just a husk of that insect is left. And they can't digest whole food, they can't digest solid food. And the shell of an insect is generally fairly hard. It's got that exoskeleton on the outside, so that husk gets left behind, and that's often what you see left hanging in a spider's web or on the ground below a spider's web is that husk from the insect that they just could not digest or eat, with all of the good insides of the insect slurped out by the spider numerous times to get all of that good nutrients and protein that was in the insect. Fun stuff. Do all spiders build webs? No, we talked about delicious, so delicious. I have not eaten dinner yet. I waited specifically, not specifically. I kid. I just didn't get around to making dinner before before this. But all spiders, we said, have the ability to produce silk. They all produce silk. However, they all do not use their silk the same way. Of all the spiders in the world, what percentage of spiders do you think builds what we consider like a traditional web? So I would say any of those pictures there on the bottom right, A through G, the different webs, those are kind of like your standard types of spider webs. What percentage of spiders actually build a web? What do you think? What percentage? Take a guess in the chat. What percent? David says, guessing 30%. That's a great guess. I gotta drink because I'm talking too much. 45. 40. Any other guesses? 50. 50. Oh, Jenny with the 52. It's like Price is Right. 20. 80. But I wouldn't ask like this if it were that high. Ah, Deb is on to me. Deb has come to a few of these webinars now, haven't you? On to my methods. It's about half. So while all the spiders out there have spinnerets and can produce silk, and often various types of silk, only about half build what we consider like a traditional web. They all do something else with their silk. And that's because silk is really expensive energetically to produce. So in nature, the whole point of existing is to reproduce and further your offspring. And if you spend most of your energy doing really hard things like making venom and building a web, both of those things take a ton of energy. You aren't going to have enough energy left to produce eggs and raise young. So they really try to, one, only do this when the time is right. So they don't often build a web at every point in the year. They will come across food in enjoy it in other ways. They find it. Some of them are active predators. Some of them only use their silk to create protective covers for their eggs. Some only produce silk to protect themselves, and we'll see some of those guys here in a moment. But silk takes a lot of energy, so it's really kind of like a special occasion build. And lots of spiders, orb weavers, are notorious for this, but after they build a web, at the end of when they build it, so if I'm thinking of an orb weaver generally builds their web in the evening, by morning you go and that web's gone because they've eaten it. They've re-ingested it to be able to get some of that protein back into their bodies. Because that silk takes so much energy and so much protein to make, they try to nutrient cycle it back into their bodies. So some other things that a spider may build: hang lines, which is, this is often, I get spiders in my car sometimes because I work for a land trust and I go to some of our properties and I leave my car open a lot. And I have different things I put in my car that have been out on the property, so I get spiders in my car. And oftentimes I'll see a hang line before I see the spider. And I know there's a spider in the car because I see his little bit of silk just hanging down from like my rearview mirror or something like that. So the hang line is essentially the line that a spider hangs down off of, sees what's going on, and he may go back up or he may come down. This is also when you see spiders like blowing in the breeze on their hang lines. So hang lines are important for spiders to use for lots of different reasons. So they'll build that. I call them sleeping bags. They're actually called pup tents, but uh, jumping spiders build what I like to call sleeping bags for them to hang out in, and we'll see a picture of that momentarily. There's net weaving spiders who build a little net and they hold it between their front two legs, and then they hang down off of like a leaf or a plant, and they wait for a bug to come by and they snatch it in the net like a fisherman scooping up fish with a net. So there are spiders that hunt not with a web but with a net. There's also spiders out there called bola spiders that make a lasso, and you heard that right. They get a piece of their silk, they attach a little sticky ball at the end, and then they hold it up in the air and they swing it around with their front legs. Literally, they are lassoing, and they try to catch moths with it. It's really absurd, and they're one of those creatures you sit and think like, how are you still around? Like, because it's such a specialized hunting technique. And not only that, but I forget, they only want one type of moth. I can't remember if they only want the females or they only want the males, but either way, 50% of what they catch they don't even want. So they are sit there swinging their lasso web around in hopes to get one particular gender of spider, or of moth, which is really absurd. Like, I don't get how they're still here, but they are. So they're doing something right. So there's lots and lots of different things that a spider can build on top of just a traditional web. Each silk gland that a spider has, which is usually between 6 and 8, so like 8 is like the magic number for spiders. 8 legs, 8 eyes, 8 silk glands. They can each produce a different type of silk. So not every silk that a spider makes is the same. So the silk that is used for a hang line is different than what is used in a web. And even the silk in a web can be different types. So that's why a spider doesn't get stuck in its own web, because they know where the sticky parts are and are not, because they built it. So they will often leave the outer edge of the web not sticky because that's where they hang out, and the rest in the middle, the denser part, will be sticky, and then they'll leave themselves a little path to get to the prey in the center, by not using the stickiest of their silk, and a little path down to the center part, which is really cool. So even within a spider's one web, there can be 2 and 3 types of silk within one web. Fascinating stuff, but all that silk used for lots and lots of different purposes. Oh, I see some things in the chat here. Oh, Sarah, you're welcome. Some people have to catch the rest. I know it's a busy time of year, but I'm glad you'll be able to watch the recording, that's for sure. All right, we talked about all that stuff. Got all that already. Okay, so what I wanted to do next, now that we kind of talked about a little bit of, well, a lot of bit of the biology, we've got two body parts, the pedicel in the middle, separating the cephalothorax and the abdomen. All eight legs come from the cephalothorax, eight eyes, up to eight spinnerets, and eight types of silk. We've got they're all predators, except very few. They all possess venom, except very few. So we know a lot about spiders in general now. So I wanted to show you some of the top largest family of spiders that are out there in PA that you're going to commonly uncover. And what you'll notice is every species, we're going to talk about a handful of them. I put the eye pattern on there and a picture of the spider, and I try to get the web when possible so that you can kind of see, because all of their webs are a little different. Not every web is built the same. And so that you can kind of have a rough guess of what you might be seeing, even just down to family, which is helpful when you see your next spider web. So, one of the ones we see very commonly in the fall, especially, it's really easy to spot these guys because in the morning, when you go out to work, if you leave early in the morning and the grass is still kind of dewy, you look out and you see these webs all over the grass and all over your bushes and your shrubs, and it looks like a little funnel going into your grass. And not to fool you, these are indeed called grass spiders. Now, their webs are pretty cool because not only do they look like a little funnel in the grass, but they're not sticky. So, this spider in particular does not have a very sticky web, and he truly doesn't have to because just by virtue of laying it over top of the grass, tons of bugs are going to get stuck in it because they're landing in the grass, they're under in the soil and at the base of the grass when it builds the web. So just by virtue of where he builds his web, you're going to get a lot of bugs. So it doesn't have to be the stickiest web out there for them to be able to get bugs. So the spider himself, he hides down in the little hole of the funnel, and as soon as a bug hits that web or touches the web and kind of shakes it, he runs out there and grabs it. And this spider is super fast. This is a very, very quick spider. They appear and snatch that food within seconds, and half the time you don't even see it happen. You just see the spider hanging out on the web, or you see him like tucked down in the web, and you see his little face looking out, just waiting to come up and snatch something. So if you look at the body of our grass spiders, their abdomen is kind of long. It's very oval shaped and has two very, very prominent spinnerets on the end. So those spinnerets almost look like the size of the fangs on the head. So the spinnerets are very, very prominent, and they generally have the long, elongated abdomen and then kind of dark streaks on the head, the cephalothorax area. And you can see its eyeballs, four in a row, two on top and two at the bottom. Wolf spiders. These ones are ones. So the grass spiders and our fishing spiders coming up and the wolf spiders often get kind of misconstrued as one another, but wolf spiders you will not see in a web, whereas grass spiders you will. Grass spiders also have the elongated, more oval abdomen. Wolf spiders don't. You also don't have the prominent spinnerets on a wolf spider either. So if you look at a wolf spider's abdomen, you don't see those spinnerets sticking out almost like two fangs. And wolf spiders, they do not build webs. They're solitary, they don't live in groups, and they are active predators. That means they do not sit and wait for prey to hit a web. They actively go out and chase and hunt down their prey. So, spiders, like wolf spiders, you see them very, very often in your gardens. And one thing they love is roly polies. So they're in your garden after the roly polies, after the slugs, after the snails, after a lot of what we consider garden pests, truly. So a wolf spider is really, really important to our gardens because they do take down a lot of creatures, little tiny critters that you wouldn't think would be problematic in a garden, but absolutely are. So the wolf spider, very important in taking out some of those guys. And I will say, a wolf spider is not considered venomous, right? This is not one It possesses venom, scientifically venomous, but we don't call it venomous. I get a pretty gnarly allergic reaction to these guys. And we've talked about this in a few talks that anything that enters your body as a foreign object, whether it is like something you eat, like a strawberry or a peanut, or it is something that's injected into your body, you can have a reaction to it, right? And wolf spiders just happen to be one that give me hives. So I always know when I've been bitten by one. I garden a lot, and often I don't love wearing gloves when I garden. I feel like I can't like get a hold of the weeds that way, and I'll feel a little pinch, and then later on I'll get hives. So I know when that happens, but it doesn't make me sick or anything. I just get a little skin reaction. So it's interesting. Everyone has a different reaction to different things. So these guys do have very good eyesight, and they have to be opportunistic out there actively hunting. If you can't see very well, you're not going to be a very good active hunter. So they have very, very good eyesight, and they love to hunt in the evening. And you'll often be able to see these spiders, especially out in your garden, if you go out in the evening and shine a flashlight around your garden. If you see two teeny little tiny eyes, or like a set of little eyes looking at you, it's probably these guys, because they have in their eyeballs what's called a tapetum lucidum, which is present in lots of nocturnal animals, including our like cats and dogs, and owls have this too. But it's essentially a film in the back of the eye that reflects light in the eye so that they can see better at nighttime. And they have that because they are nighttime hunters. And you will see that reflected if you shine a light over your garden in the nighttime. And it'll look like just two eyes because you're seeing the two largest there at the front. They've got the four teeny ones underneath, and then like two like half eyeballs kind of sitting at the top of those two biggest eyeballs that you'll see the tapetum lucidum reflected on in a wolf spider. These are also the ones that carry their young on the back. So you like flip a log, sometimes you'll see a spider carrying all the babies on the back. That's always a wolf spider. They are one of the only that do that. So an easy way to distinguish them: if you see one carrying around a whole bunch of spiderlings, or sometimes called slings as short, it's a wolf spider. One of the few that take care of their babies. Most of them just lay the eggs and leave. But mother wolf spiders do a pretty good job. And of course, jumping spiders, which is like almost, I won't say almost everybody's, but a lot of people's favorites. And I've seen so much, and this I just don't understand, but people keeping jumping spiders as pets in like terrariums with like funny setups. And I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get a lot of things. I'm not a TikToker or any of those other things the young kids are doing. So maybe maybe I just don't get it. But I don't recommend keeping wild spiders as pets. That's not really where they belong. But jumping spiders, I've seen people doing this for whatever reason, just because they're cute and they have a cute face. And Lucas the spider, the cartoon, did wonders for changing the attitudes of spiders, and I'm all for that. But we don't keep wild animals as pets. Not a great idea. There's lots and lots of jumping spiders out there. In fact, they make up 12% of all the spider species. There is a huge amount. This is the type of spider that Bagheera kiplingi is a jumping spider. So this is where you see the spider that is the only one that is not predatory. But 99.99999% of jumping spiders are predatory, minus that one. They are not web builders. Here is where they build what I like to call the sleeping bag, aka the pup tent, and you'll see it on that photo at the bottom left there. Those two photos on the bottom are both my photos. That's the sleeping bag, aka the pup tent, that a jumping spider will build itself to hang out in and protect itself. These spiders are very, very good at seeing, and they have to be because they're, again, active hunters. These are not the ones building a web and catching their food. If you don't build a web, you have to be an active predator. Those are the two options: the sit and wait in the active web, or hunt your food, unless you're the bolas spider, and then you're going to try to wrangle it like you're at the rodeo. So there's only so many options in spider world. And jumping spiders come in lots and lots of different shapes and sizes and colors. There's beautiful ones. That's where you see the peacock jumping spider that has the really bright colored abdomen that it puts up, and it does this little dance. If you've not seen it, you absolutely should look for peacock jumping spider. So funny and so cool. There's also that one on the bottom right was a really cool find when I was at one of our properties. That is an ant mimicking jumping spider. So at first glance, it looks like an ant, and that's its whole point, is to look like an ant because most things in nature don't fear an ant. So they can move freely around flowers and plants, and everything thinks it's an ant, and then it can just hang out there and wait for something to land, and it grabs it and eats it because it's actually a spider. So that was a really cool find. I took so many pictures of it, and I made everyone look at it at the office when I came back. I was like, you guys have to look at this. And it was really cool. And now I see them fairly regularly at that property. So I don't know if I've like stumbled upon a nest or I'm just really lucky. But I love those guys. They're probably one of the coolest bugs I think I've found is those guys, the ant mimickers. Now, these are like our Olympic athletes of spiders. Not only are they active hunters and very fast and have really great vision, but they can jump 50 times their body length. They are spring loaded. So that is oftentimes the spider that is looking around, and you think it's like, is it looking at me? It looks curious, and that's why people keep them as pets, because they seem to have a bit of a personality. And that's because they can see you. They can see really well. So when most spiders are just kind of wandering around in kind of a weird fuzzy abyss because they don't have really great eyesight, the jumping spider can absolutely see your face, your facial expressions, and can kind of almost feel that energy of a person, and that gives them that curious appearance because they are looking at you. They can see you. So when they're looking, yeah, they're figuring you out. And then they do jump and they scare people sometimes, but they're just spring loaded. That's their method of getting away from people, is to just boing and spring load themselves away from a situation. This is the also another cool thing about jumping spiders is just a handful of years ago. Again, time is irrelevant. I have no clue when this was actually discovered. But recently, they discovered that there is a species of jumping spider that feeds its young a milk like substance when they are first born, which is really incredible. And that gets you thinking, like, well, then what's the definition of a mammal, right? And where do things fall in line if we do have other creatures like an invertebrate feeding its young it's not milk, but a milk-like substance that provides nutrients to it, which is really, really interesting stuff. So just some incredible scientific research coming out in the last 10 or so years over a wide range of things. The jumping spider's eye pattern is probably like the least scary because it looks like four in a row going right around its head. There are two eyeballs kind of in each one, so that's why it looks like there's less, but there's more in each eyeball. And that's what gives it like the cute little adorable look. But they're very cool. Very, very fascinating creatures all over the place. I found so many varieties now. It's really interesting. I have zebra jumping spiders that nest on my shed every year, which is awesome. And I always see the bold ones. And there's a tan jumping spider, and just so many fascinating ones. And they all have just different colors and shapes, and they're really cool. Very highly recommend learning more about jumping spiders because we could do a whole talk on just jumping spiders. Oh, I should. I should do a whole talk on jumping spiders. I'm going to add that to my list. Jumping Spider 101. Add it to my ever growing list of things that I think of when I'm talking about something else that I then want to talk about more because I can't stop talking. So I've got a lengthy list of those things. Another really, really fascinating one, crab spiders. And I love to bring these up because crab spiders change colors. They're like the chameleons of the invertebrate world. So, crab spiders have the ability to change color to be able to camouflage on the flowers they are sitting on. They're also sometimes called flower spiders because they are found 9 times out of 10 generally on some sort of flower or plant matter, hiding as ambush predators. Again, not web builders. Here's more that are not web builders. They hide and they wait and they camouflage, and when an unsuspecting bee or beetle comes onto that flower, it reaches out and snatches them. And I also love bringing this up because one of my sorority sisters back in the day, she did her doctorate on crab spiders, and she wrote the mathematical equation that you use to determine the rate of color change in crab spiders, which was really cool. She used Photoshop and like counted pixels to write the math, which is mind blowing to me because I'm terrible at math. But I thought that was really cool. Her doctoral research was crab spiders. It's really cool. They're also called, they get the name crab spiders because they often hold their front two legs together, so they look thick and they look like a little crab sitting there with their little front legs forward, and they scurry sideways and backwards a lot like a crab does. I like to include this picture because this is the prime example of why they're called flower spiders sometimes. You can see that crab spider hanging out right on that goldenrod. And this is my picture from, where was I? Oh, probably at a property. I don't think this was my yard, but probably at one of our properties, and saw that little crab spider camouflaging perfectly right in the middle of that goldenrod, waiting for an unsuspecting insect to land so it could snatch it for a meal. That was cool. You can see it holding its front two legs together, looking like a little crab. Orb weavers, one of our largest groups of spiders out there, third largest, 3,000 species, oftentimes some of the largest spiders and the largest webs created. These are our spiders that make a web pretty much every day at dusk. They come out in the evening, they make their web, they hang out in it all night, and then they eat it again in the morning so that they can reingest that protein back into their body and reuse it. These spiders sometimes get a bad rep because they are big and because they are colorful. People automatically assume that big and colorful means dangerous, when in fact, these are not scary spiders at all. They're actually very clean. They do not like stuff getting in their web. And they do a very good job of, if they catch something, if they're not going to eat it, cutting it loose out of their web to keep their web clean, which is really interesting. And these are the ones that sometimes also get a bad rap because they love to build webs over trails. And if you go hiking early in the morning, sometimes your face meets those webs first before you even see them. But very, very fascinating spiders. The one on the far right, one of my favorites, a garden spider there, garden argiope, which builds a really nice web. And then that thick part in the middle is a different type of silk, and that silk is called the stabilimentum. And scientists for a long time thought that the stabilimentum was to stabilize the web. That's why they called it a stabilimentum. But again, recent science shows that that particular silk is actually UV reflective, and lots of insects see UV light and they're attracted to it and they fly directly into the stabilimentum. So it's an attractant to insects that see in UV light, and that is a reflective strip right in the middle that they hit, and then the spider gets a tasty meal. So this often gets to be a big old spider. Like with legs, they can get like big, big, big. Just this fall, was in here working, and my partner was out in the yard, and I had the window open, and I hear, whoa, and then I hear, come see this, and it was a big old garden spider in our garden, which is the first time I had seen one in my yard. So that's exciting. I like to keep track of all the creatures that I see in my yard that pop up, whether it's a fungus or an insect or a bird, all sorts of good stuff. I like to know what my own little like slice of land is doing. And it's small, it's like postage stamp sized. But some cool stuff has popped up, including a banded garden spider this past fall. Fishing spiders get the name fishing because they are semi-aquatic. They like to be in and around water, and these are the spiders that you often see hanging out on top of water because they have hydrophobic hairs on their legs that allows them to repel water and actively hunt on the surface of water for all of those water bugs and all those little water skimmers and water beetles that we see around. They can even create themselves a little pocket of air around their face and go underwater, which is crazy cool. So fishing spiders often get confused with our wolf spiders and with our Oh gosh, who was the first one already? Grass spiders, but these ones are found more in and around water. And they tend to have the bands of color on their legs. And if you look at the abdomen, it's like rounded and then it has like a little tip at the end. So, not quite as elongated as a grass spider and not quite as blunt as a wolf spider. Got that little tip on the end. Cellar spiders are our true daddy longlegs. These are the species that they're not harvestmen, they're true spiders. And they get the name daddy longlegs because of their hugely long legs. Now, this is not to be confused with what gets called a daddy longlegs in Australia. That is a terrifying, an actual very dangerous spider. These are not. Cellar spiders I like to refer to as the masters of chaos because their webs have zero rhyme or reason. They rely solely on the chaos of a messy web to capture prey. So oftentimes you'll see cellar spiders, they get that nickname because they love to be in your basement, and they love to be upside down in your basement in their web. You'll notice them often hanging upside down in their web. And if you get too close to them, they get nervous, they shake. So they're really just little, tiny little babies upside down shaking in their web because they're scared in their chaos web. It's not even an organized, nice, round web. It's just a mess because the messier it is, the more likely a bug is to hit it by sheer surface area alone and not the stickiness. So little cellar spiders hanging out in your basement in their upside down web, shaking when they're scared, and catching bugs in their chaos web. So I like to think if I was a spider, I would probably be would probably be a cellar spider. That's probably where my niche would be. I don't know if I'd be out there being an active predator or any of that stuff. I think I'd probably just be in my messy little web in somebody's basement, making a mess. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the two that we actually consider venomous here in PA, and that is the black widow and the brown recluse. Now, the black widow is native to PA. We find it surviving our winters. I've never seen a black widow myself. I've seen the false widows, which are pretty cool, but they are shy and they rarely leave their web. In fact, I have a friend who is a spider nerd. She does spider education programs all over the country, and she has black widows, and she doesn't even keep the lid on their containers most of the time because they rarely ever leave their web. 99.9% of the time, they're in the web. They don't go out and adventure around, they just are content to sit in their webs. They're very shy creatures. They tend to hide when they see people. Bites are rare. A lot of times when we're seeing bites, it's because we pick up firewood and they are in the firewood and we get bit, or put our foot in a shoe that has been in the garage for a really long time, or that's been on the porch for a long time and a spider has gotten in there. So always shake out anything that has been in your shed for a long time. Roll firewood before you pick it up, because that's when we're seeing the bites, is when we accidentally step on them, touch them, handle them, things like that. Deaths are incredibly rare from a black widow. Most bites result in a flu-like symptom. You get like chills and body aches and things like that. And one thing I will say is that a lot of times what you know of, and the way that it's kind of diagnosed, is if you look over your body, you'll be sweating just about everywhere. It causes really intense, like sweating, body sweating. You'll be sweating everywhere but where the spider bit you. So you'll have like a red mark on your skin, and that part will be bone dry and the rest of your body will be sweating. So that is one way to kind of know for sure that's what it was looking for that little patch where you may have gotten bit that is nice and dry when everything else was sweating. Now, the brown recluse is the other one that gets a bad rep. They are not native here. They are a southern species. When we find them here because they have been brought here on firewood or other things that we move in, our camping equipment, stuff like that. And then they live indoors. So if they are not moved indoors accidentally, they aren't going to make it through our winters. They just aren't meant to. Like all the other spiders overwinter, they're native, they're used to the cold weather. The brown recluse is not, because they are more southern. So we do find them here, but it's because they were brought here via, you know, our camping equipment or a shipment of goods or things like that. They do have the little violin shape on their back. Otherwise, they're just a really like inconspicuous brown spider. But the odds of you being bit by a brown recluse are very, very, very low unless you go into the south, just because they are not here regularly unless they've been brought in by someone else and they don't make it through our winters unless they happen to be in somebody's garage or something like that. So, really, the only native spider that we consider venomous is the black widow. All right. Oop, my thing doesn't want to turn. There we go. Now, I just want to talk very briefly, like in like 30 seconds, about arachnophobia, because arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, fifth most common fear in the entire US, and it is far more likely for you to fear spiders if you have European descent. And when we look at the list, this list is just some of the folklore about spiders from around the world. So, a lot of Native Americans see spiders as weaving the web to paradise or creating the universe. We see them as signs of happiness and wealth and good luck and wisdom. They're weavers of destiny, creating the universe. They have great powers. So, lots and lots and lots of really positive associations around the world. If you're German or Ukraine, you might have, or Ukrainian or Eastern European, you may have spiders in your Halloween decorate or your Christmas decorations this time of year, because their association with tinsel and webs. So that's where you see a lot of spiders in Christmas decor is from like Eastern European. But if you are Western European, you tend to have the fear of spiders, and that's because back in the day, we incorrectly associated the plague with spiders. We thought the plague was spread by spiders. So the plague took out like a lot of people. Over half the population died of the plague. You tend to fear something that does something like that. So we kind of pass down that fear, and science has shown fear can be passed down, and it has been. So folks with Western European descent far more likely to be fearful of spiders because of our ancestors' association with them spreading the plague. They also got incorrectly associated with mass hysteria. In fact, we used to call mass hysteria tarantism because we thought it was spread by tarantula bites. And mass hysteria is very rare these days, but still does happen. And we wrongly associated spiders with that too. That actually started in Italy. So blame my ancestors for that one, my Italian ancestors. But so most of the world, minus Europeans and now Americans, tend to see spiders in a positive light. So a little interesting fact there. Spiders have also been used in research. There are scientists out there giving spiders drugs to see how it affects their webs, and it's really fascinating. So you can take a look there. They used orb weavers of some sort and gave them different drugs and then watched what happened to them building their webs. And what I'm really fascinated by are the sleeping pills and the caffeine. Like the one on the left, the spider was too drowsy to function to build an actual web, and the one on the right is just total nuts because they gave him who knows what kind of caffeine and how much, but he just built a crazy web because he was so hopped up on caffeine. So you can kind of see some of the research being done there. And then those of you who know me know I like to wrap up with a little funny or a little meme or some sort of relevant photo at the end. So I always like to put this one in there: squash fear, not spiders, because spiders are indeed incredibly valuable assets to the ecosystem, and we should respect their place in them and not squash them when we see them. All right. Again, thank you guys. Appreciate you taking an hour to learn about spiders with me. Of all the things you could be learning about 2 weeks before Christmas. Spiders. But I appreciate you all, and I hope you learned some stuff. And we've got even more coming up next year. So I did a whole bunch of talks this year with Natural Lands, and Tiana was nice enough to ask me back for next year so that we can learn about even more. So we're gonna learn about all sorts of stuff, including some new presentations that I haven't even built yet, which are going to be really cool, and I'm excited. I always love having new stuff to talk about. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Oh, and welcome
Julie.
back, Trudy.
Yay, thank you so much. This has been wonderful as always. I have like so many notes as I always take a ton, but literally learned so much from you. And I did share in the chat if anyone is interested. As Julie mentioned, next year we'll be back. We're doing possums January 8th and snakes February 18th. And then I
Oh,
believe owls in March. But if
yeah.
anyone
I know
has
we've
any
got a whole list through
questions,
like the whole first half of the year, so
yes, we do. We're booked
yeah.
out. Thank you for being so patient with me, Julie. I know your
Always
schedule fills
appreciate
up.
people booking early. Yes.
Yes, I appreciate that too. So, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat or you
Yeah.
can contact Julie afterwards. I'll also send the recording and a little recap in about 7 business days. But please stay tuned with us for more upcoming. And Julie, is there anything else you want to share before?
No, you can go
Okay.
to
Oh, yes.
AlleghenyLandTrust.org/events if you want to check out some of the programming that we offer. I know a lot of you all are on the opposite side of the state, but we do lots of virtual talks, so you can come to more talks like this one.
Yes, please. I
Yes,
forgot to
and I'll be
mention that.
out
Thank you.
at least in your direction in March for the PAEE conference. So I'll be like 2/3 of the way in your direction.
Oh, you're coming slightly our way.
Slightly your way, yep.
Yay. Well, have a safe travel for that. Oh, I did have one final question. It was
Oh,
actually
yeah.
me who left one in the chat.
Oh.
It was, are cellar spiders only here because of human habitat, or what did they like?
Nah, they've probably been in caves and
Probably,
rock
yeah, probably
crevices and
adapted.
yeah, just moved in when we
Yes,
did.
probably not called cellar spiders until we found
Till we
them,
made
of
a cellar for
course.
them to be in, yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Julie,
Yeah.
and looking forward to much more with you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a great holiday season,
Yes,
everyone. I
you
can't believe
too.
it's that time, but
I
yes, have a
know.
great, relaxing, restful holiday.